The Shannon is the latest class of all-weather lifeboat in the RNLI fleet. It's highly agile, manoeuvrable, and it can take on the toughest sea conditions. But how do you build one? It all happens here, the All-Weather Lifeboat Centre in Poole. A talented team of engineers, boat builders, technicians, electricians and painters work together, producing a brand new Shannon class lifeboat every 12 weeks. The build starts with large moulds of the wheelhouse and hull. They are built separately and are not joined until the final stage of the build. This gives our boat builders as much space, light and ventilation to work in as possible. To make the outer shell of the lifeboat, the boat builders use Sprint Composite material, which is glass and carbon fibre with a layer of epoxy resin on one side. This is different to the traditional method of boat building, which involves rolling resin onto an itchy matting. With this method, it's difficult to control the ratio. Too little resin results in structurally weak dry spots. Too much produces a heavy structure, so the boat would be slower and sit lower in the water. So while our boat builders do still use the traditional method for some of the Shannon's non-structural components, like these seat bases, they use Sprint Composite for the outer shell. The material is laid into the empty moulds and cooked overnight under vacuum pressure. Then the boat builders add bulkheads and stiffeners to the outer shell. Bulkheads are upright walls that divide the boat into 6 watertight compartments, and stiffeners are longitudinal beams that give the hull extra rigidity to withstand slamming in rough seas. They are glued and bonded into place.
Hiya, I'm William Wiltshire and I'm a technician boat builder at the RNLI. So stage 1 and 2 is the very start of the build. So we're building the superstructure for the deck and for the hull. So we do the outer skin and then the inner skin, and then we fit a few components and then we'll pass it on to the next team for them to fit out their components. Right at the beginning of the build at the moment, we'll be putting some peel ply down on the boat and then we'll be putting surface film down. And then after that, it'll be a few layers of QE12 and XE600, which is the mat that we use to lay up the hull. The mat's kept in a freezer, needs to be kept cool because the resin is already inside the mat, so it takes out the human error of too much resin, and the warmer it gets, the stickier it gets and the harder it is to work with. So it's kept in a freezer until we need to use it, and then when we finish with it at the end of the day, it all goes back in the freezer to be stored. This is the QE12 that we use. We take the backer off, that's just a bit of paper to keep that from sticking to other things or itself. We'll lay that face side down. And then when we're ready, we'll put some peel ply and breather on it, and then we'll cook it in the oven and it'll go nice and hard, and then we're ready to work on it again. So the next stage, we'll hand the boat and the deck over to the next team, and then they'll start fitting out with pads and cable glands, and they do other things like the fuel tanks, and there's other larger and smaller components that go on. And then that takes around another 12 or 13 weeks, so it all runs on a bit of a knife's edge. We all pulse at the same time.
After the first 12 weeks, the wheelhouse and hull are lifted out of the moulds and moved to the next stage. Here the boat builders install the lifeboat's composite furniture, such as fan casings, stowages and vent boxes. The twin Hamilton water jets are also fitted. Each one has a movable nozzle to provide steering and a bucket assembly to give the boat reverse thrust. The Shannon is the only all-weather lifeboat to be powered by water jets rather than traditional propellers. The water jets give the Shannon class lifeboats its manoeuvrability. They also allow the lifeboats to operate in shallow waters and to be intentionally beached. Next, around 1,500 fiberglass pads are positioned and glued onto the surface of the structure. More of the Shannon's components and equipment will be mounted onto these after it is painted. The pads must be fitted precisely or the components won't fit later on. So there are jigs for every job and each one aligns perfectly. Every Shannon is as close to identical as possible, which will make future maintenance more efficient.
My name is Owen O'Connor and my role here is as a technician boat builder. So at the moment, currently in this stage, I'm working on the fuel tanks. So the fuel tanks get manufactured in sprint, so they come out and they need to be trimmed, so we pre-trim them, and then we're trying to dry fit it to the boat so it contours to the shape of between the bulkheads where it's meant to go. So we're taking it in and out via crane and trimming it and refining it so we can get as close as possible so it fits in nicely. So what's in this box are pads. So this is essentially what a pad is, and we stick hundreds of these things here on this cell. And essentially what these are for is you can stick these on any part of the boat and they'll serve as a base to hold all the equipment in. So they could be holding up stuff like junction boxes, fuse boards, fire extinguisher mounts, all that sort of stuff. And essentially what they do is you put them on the bulkhead so you're not constantly drilling holes into the bulkhead, which could potentially damage the bulkhead and weaken it. So you bond these on using high strength epoxy glue. But first you have to like key up the area so it sticks really, really well. Degrease it using IPA, which is like a rubbing alcohol. It's a similar sort of compound. Mix up the glue, stick it on there, and then apply a nice fillet around the edge so it's nice and smooth. Then once that's gone off, it could be 6 hours if you've used the fast version of the glue, or 8 hours. And then once that's gone off, you then strip it back off, sand it again so it's ready for the painters to go and give it a fresh coat of paint, and then yeah, you're sorted. You can't stick the glue onto the paint because it won't adhere properly. So it has to be composite on composite contact with the glue, and that's what gives it the strength. So essentially, yeah, that's why they're stuck on before painting. So these are actually made out of loads of really, really tightly compacted layers of glass. So you can even actually peel off individual layers, but they're so thin. But there's like hundreds of them all compressed into one sheet. So really, really strong.
Next, the Shannon is moved to the paint booths. Here the team fill, sand, prime and paint the lifeboat. The hull is given a coat of abrasion-resistant icebreaker paint to prevent wear during beach recoveries. It's topped with anti-foul to prevent marine organisms like seaweed and barnacles growing on it. It is self-eroding, so when the marine organisms try to bond to it, it sheds. The wheelhouse interior is painted matte black, which will help to reduce reflections for the lifeboat crews when they are out at sea at night. The paint booths are temperature and humidity controlled to ensure a good finish and long-lasting protection. There are lights all around which eliminate shadows and helps the painters achieve an even finish. With the boat fully painted, it's time to fit the components onto the fiberglass pads. This includes the Shannon's two 650 horsepower Scania engines, pipework, and electrical boxes. All the hull cables are installed and made ready to be fitted. A collapsible mast is fitted to the wheelhouse, and capstans and bollards are fitted on the deck. The technicians complete as much of the fit out as possible while the hull and wheelhouse are still separate. For each component or system being installed, there is a corresponding kit of parts. Each kit contains everything a technician needs to complete that task.
My name is Daniel and I'm an electrical engineer on the Shannon boat. I'm working on a powerplex. Basically, we have a main distribution board there where all the power goes, and then the power gets split to 12 powerplexes, which in turn will power sections of the boat. Some jobs have kits to go with it, or some it's just a matter of terminating cables in boxes, or if not, you will find the same number of the job on a kit box, and it will have different parts, let's say, to fit or to wire to. It's already prepared for us to make it as simple as possible. Get the job, get the box, get on with the job.
At the final stage, the wheelhouse is lifted and laminated onto the hull. Then fendering, stanchions and cleats are fitted. The wheelhouse electronic cables are fitted, with cables going in and coming up from the hull. It is connected as one system. The technicians install the seats, systems and information management system, and the windows. The decals are added to the wheelhouse and hull. These will be used to identify the Shannon.
My name is Harry Anstey. My role is technician on fit out stage 2. So that's the last stage of Shannon build before it goes out for trials and commissioning. So what I've been working on today is prepping the fenders for being fit. This is kind of a job which is in the middle of our processes. So prior to that, we do deck to hull join, hull fill and fair, paint it, and then we can go on to fitting the fenders. Really a big part of the job satisfaction is knowing that what we're building, what it's going to do, the good it's going to do. So that's why it's something we take very seriously, is making sure that we're building something to the highest quality. We're not cutting any corners, we're giving it 110% to make sure that every boat that goes out is the same, to the same high standard, fully functional, and yeah, ready to save lives at sea.
The Shannon is moved from the lifeboat factory and is launched with a bell ringing ceremony. It's a traditional maritime ceremony that marks the beginning of a new watch. After the bell is rung, the lifeboat is lowered into the water for the first time. Then the lifeboat begins its harbour acceptance trials and sea acceptance trials. The team call these hats and sats. During the hats, the Shannon stays alongside in the harbour. The team follows set procedures to check everything is working before taking the lifeboat out to sea. After the hats, it's time for the sats. The operations proving team take the Shannon out to sea for a week to test it thoroughly. They make sure it can reach its top speed of 25 knots, steers and responds to controls as expected, and has no excessive vibration. Once the Shannon lifeboat has passed all the trials, it is formally accepted into the fleet by one of the RNLI directors. It is now ready to help lifeboat volunteers save lives around the coast for years to come. When you donate to the RNLI, you help provide the crews with everything from protective kit to the fuel in the lifeboats. You're powering them to the rescue. Thank you.